All right. Hello. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are hailing from. Bridget and I are back with our last installment of Do Not Read a Book. Do not read a book. Ha! Do not write a book until you catch this live stream part 4, which is based off of our upcoming book, Do Not Write a Book Until You Read This One. That's where the read part was getting me tripped up, as I was already too far ahead in promoting the title of our upcoming work. But before we dive into part 4, which is today all about calling in the professionals, I want to give Bridget a chance to say who she is and what she does in the publishing world, and then I'll follow on her trail. And then we're going to dive into the good stuff, which is really what I know you all want to tune into. So, Bridget, who are you? What do you do? How do you help authors?
Bridgett McGowen-Hawkins, founder, owner, CEO of Press 49, an award-winning hybrid publishing company. Why hybrid? It is that nice combination between traditional publishing and self-publishing, where you don't want to figure it all out and become this expert in the publishing industry. But at the same time, you want that high standard and that high quality applied to your book that you would get from a traditional publisher. So that's what we do at Press 49. We get our authors published faster than the competition with results our authors absolutely love. Find out more at press49.com.
Oh, it's almost like I knew you were going to say that, and I fired up that banner at the exact right moment. Y'all, Bridget and I, we know what we're doing at this point. We've been working pretty closely together for over a year now, and I love the story of how we came together to work on this book. Do not write a book until you read this one, which you can catch in the first live stream that we did at the top of January, part 1. So I'm not going to regale you with that tale all over again, but I love that story. So if you're at all curious, go check out part 1 of this live stream series. Now, I'm Allie Berthiaume, and I'm with the Right Place, Right Time as the CEO and founder, as well as the sole writing guide, ghostwriter, and book coach. And I come in way before Press 49 gets tapped on the shoulder. So I am really working with authors in developing their manuscripts so that those books are really sound in terms of organization, cohesiveness, flow, tone, meaning, specificity, promise, all of the big things. I am not necessarily a line editor or proofreader. I can get by, but that's not my sweet spot. So I'm really at the front end of this train that's chugging, helping authors really get all of that like meat and potatoes down onto the page and really having something that we can hold in our hands. And then we send it on to future editors and then eventually publishers like Bridget. And I have a niche space kind of in memoir or like personal development and leadership. So when it comes to the genres that I want to play in and the clients that I want to serve, those are my jams. And I'm probably sending a majority of the other books elsewhere, to some other really fabulous people in the publishing industry that I'm so blessed to know, because there's enough space for all of us in this big, crazy, competitive world. And so since we're really talking about all the other people that are in this big, crazy, competitive publishing world, that's a really perfect segue into today's focus, which is calling in the pros. All right. So in today's live stream, we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to find the support you need, when it's time to find that support, who to call, what to ask. But the first thing that I want to just set the stage with, is that, and Bridget, you can chime in here. I feel like writing a book is kind of like raising a child, and that saying, right? It takes a village. Um, it's no different. All right. We don't want anybody to be writing their book in isolation. We don't want anybody to be doing it all themselves. We don't want anyone to feel like they're alone in this. And that's so critical and important, because what happens when you don't know what you're doing it the first time, and you do it all yourself? Unfortunately, that's where we get a lot of errors, a lot of mistakes, and honestly, a lot of shitty looking books. Um, and not just looking, but also sounding. So, you need other people to help you along the way. Bridget, do you want to tag team off of that?
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, when Allie and I first wrote our books, we there are so many things we would have done differently. So many things we would have done differently. I know I was under a tight timeline. I did call in some pros, but I didn't work with a publishing company. I established my own later that year. But if I had to do it all over again, I would totally work with a publishing company. I did call in the editors, I did call in the graphic designers because I know nothing about designing the cover of a book. I know nothing about well, I know something about typesetting. I know a lot about editing, but still, you don't do it yourself. Oftentimes we'll have this friend who was an English major in college and they can spot a fused sentence from a mile away and we think that that's a good option for an editor, or we believe that someone who has this great eye for color and design and that it's okay to cut corners and to call in those people. But oh my goodness, I'm here to tell you if I had it to do all over again with my first book, I would do some things differently. And that is calling in more pros, or instead of trying to figure it out all on my own, working with a publishing company. Um, Again, there were just mistakes with that book that yeah, I'm not excited about it. That's why it's in its second edition now, so I can do it all over again. But right? And that's the cool thing about writing too. You can have a quote unquote do-over. But hey, why not do it right the first time? You have plenty of other things to do in your life. So do it right the first time and call in those people who are adept at the publishing industry and they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And this is like the exact reason why we even wrote Do Not Write a Book Until You Read This One, because we don't want anybody to have to go through making the same hard earned, you know, making the same mistakes and learning the lessons in a hard way. We want you to learn from people who have already been there. And of course, from all of the other people that we've served, that we've heard the horror stories from, we've put it all together in one place for those aspiring authors to help them out and give them a little bit more to go on than just flying by the seat of their pants. So when it comes to the professionals, I think really the first thing to recognize, right, is when it's time to call in support. Okay. Now, this is not a one size fits all. There rarely is ever a one size fits all answer to just about anything in any industry. But when it's time to call in support is really based on you, your project, and like what's your zone and what's not your zone, and what are your strengths and what aren't your strengths, and what is your budget, and like what can you afford. There's lots of different circumstances around when it's time to call in that support. But generally speaking, right, I would say that one of the times it's time to call in support is if the book won't exist unless you get some help. Okay. If the book won't exist unless you get some help, then call in the pros. Okay. Now, what could that look like? That could look like you saying for 18 months that you're going to write a book and not doing a dang thing about it. That could be you having already signed with a publisher, have a contract, have a deadline, and still you're not doing anything about it, right? So you've already called in the pro in this instance, you've called in the publisher, yet you're still not writing the book, right? Then you're probably going to need some other pro. You're probably going to need some other like book coach or ghostwriter or accountability partner or something to get you, writing those words so that you actually have something to hand over to the publisher, right? So if the book is just going to cease to not happen at all, then you need to call in some people to help you. Bridgett, when would be another good time for somebody to call in the pros?
Well, you took the words out of my mouth when you were saying when you know you're at a point where you need to get this book done and it's not going to exist if you don't get it done. Another time is when you are kind of in a space where you're feeling uncertain. You're not really sure what the next steps are. Let's say you do have a completed manuscript and you want to get it out to the world, but you just don't know what the next step is for making that happen. So if you're just absolutely unclear, or maybe you started the process on your own and you're not really sure what the next step is, you really need to call in a pro.
Couldn't agree more. Now, there are a couple of very specific times where Bridgett and I would tell you to call in the pro, okay? And she actually already alluded to one of them. And that's when you're getting ready to hit send on that manuscript, being propelled over to a friend who's really good at English. Okay, writing and reading English. All right, please don't. Um, Call in the pros when it comes to any kind of editing. All right, editing equals call in the professionals. That's what I'm going to put in this banner to throw up here on the bottom of the screen. Editing equals professionals. All right. Yes, it's nice that when we have friends and family who can spot a typo, who might know proper placement of a comma. There is so much more that goes into our developmental editing, our line editing, our copy editing. See how much editing you didn't even realize existed? Mechanical editing. Look at all of these things are different in some way, and yet there's all these different names. And then proofreading. Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, go ahead, Bridgett.
Well, I was going to say, if you are the type of person who's written a manuscript and you get to a point where you say, I need an editor, and then you reach out to someone who is connected to publishing, editing, writing, or what have you, and then you just say, I need my book edited, and that's all you know to say, then you need to call in the pros for the very reason Allie just gave you. There are all different types of editing, well, not editing styles, but levels of editing out there. Like Allie said, there's developmental, there's mechanical, there's line editing, there's copy editing. And so I recently had someone reach out to me with this very scenario saying that they wanted editing. And I responded with, here are the 3 types that we offer. Which one do you need? Then I'm able to quote you a price. So if you're at that point where you're not even clear on the type of editing that your manuscript needs, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. The first one that it needs is developmental editing. I won't invoice you for that. But if you're not even sure what kind of editing, you just know you want it quote unquote edited, it's time to call in the pros. And then I think this is something that Allie kind of mentioned, or maybe we'll get to this. Also, you want to call in the pros if it's an area that's just outside of your skill set, right? You are just not an expert. I mentioned it earlier. I know how to, coordinate colors, if you will. I'm great at English and writing, and I know the difference between a subject and a verb and a pronoun and so on and so forth. However, a cover design is not my zone of genius. So if it's outside your skill set, and especially the editing piece just really drives me up a wall. If you're reaching out and you're just saying, I need editing, but you don't even know what kind you need and what are the costs associated with each one, because each one comes with a different price tag, it's time to call in the pros. Okay, I'll shut up for now.
Well, you said cover design, Bridgett, and then that made me think, oh yeah, cover design. Like that is definitely for me a thing where I would recommend working with a professional. And yes, I know there's AI tools that probably generate really beautiful covers. And yes, Canva and Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator probably have book cover templates. But if you don't know your way around Canva or Adobe or Photoshop, if you don't have a design eye or design background, chances are you're not going to be looking at things the way that a professional graphic designer or book designer is going to be looking at your work and how it can be represented. A perfect example. Just a couple weeks ago, I was on a call with a client, and we were meeting with his publishing concierge and his cover designer. There was 4 of us on this call to talk through visual concepts that were going to best align and best represent his book in terms of tone, meaning, like symbolism, and we sat there and we watched her add shading and then take shading away and then reposition lettering and then add backdrops and then change filters and then layer upon layer of all these different things. I couldn't believe, the level of detail that was going into the design that I had originally seen before we got on there and I saw her kind of working through all these programs. Canva and Photoshop and all these other things that you're trying to do yourself are going to be flat. They're not going to give you the dimension and the thought and the symbolism and the richness of a beautiful cover design the way that a professional can do this. And remember, cover design is packaging. It's the first thing that people are going to see when they're engaging with your book. And if they don't like what they see, they will just keep walking. We all do that as consumers of any product. So if you're gonna not skimp anywhere, editing, cover design. Like, please spend the
Mhm.
money, do these things, and work with professionals. Um, so those are a handful of times when it's important to call in support. So now we need, like, where do you find it? Who to call? Like, what do you even ask? All right. So let's just start with um, where you can find the support. Okay. So what are some good places that you can look to getting those publishing professionals? Bridgett, where would you go first?
Right. I have absolutely fallen in love with Upwork. What I love about Upwork is you are able to see ratings, you're able to request portfolios, you're able to have interviews with professionals. So, Upwork is a fabulous place if you are working with a budget and you cannot pay a hybrid publisher that full price, because working with a hybrid publisher who takes care of everything is going to be more expensive than you going and finding the different professionals. So Upwork is absolutely one of my favorite places to go. Is that where I found one of my editors way back in the day? I'm pretty sure it is. Also, Fiverr is another option. I don't use it much. It's been a long time since I've used Fiverr, but you could certainly use Fiverr. Also, there are different organizations that people are members of, and I'm actually going to push those organizations more than I'm going to push Upwork. So there's the Independent Book Publishers Association, and they have a full cadre of members that are ranging from full service publishers to editors to typesetters and so on. So check out associations like IBPA, where you are going to find top-notch professionals who know this industry. So those are three places that I would recommend, but I would certainly start with IBPA. Additionally, okay. Actually, I'm going to let Allie talk about the Editorial Freelance Association. You're a member of this, right? I'm a member of
You know
IBPA.
what? I really need to become a member of this because I refer to
Okay.
this website constantly. So
Yeah.
what I
Okay.
love about this association is not only do they have great resources and information, and they have like a conference and things like that, but they also have their freelancing editorial rates that you can always refer to. And as either a professional who's referring to other professionals, but you're trying to quote your client, like who they might need next and what those people might cost, I always check here. Um, but then it's also really helpful for an author to just be able to go there themselves and see, what am I looking at for these different types of editing once they figure out how many different layers there are to the editing picture. So at the Editorial Freelancers Association for sure is a go-to resource. And then on your point, Bridgett, there are then associations that might be for like ghostwriting, right? So you can look at ghostwriting agencies, organizations, if you're trying to find a ghostwriter. Readsy. Readsy is another kind of like book publishing site that offers really fabulous content on their blog, but there's also a way to search for people within the publishing space. So you can find, like, you need a cover designer, you need an editor. You can search for people based on what they do, right? So Readsy is another additional avenue. And then obviously LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn, you can search based on keyword, right? You can search based on, like, you're looking for editors, you're looking for coaches, right? And then it's going to pop up like probably hundreds of thousands of results that have those words in their bios. But at least here, it's a professional network, right? You can see who they might be connected to, and maybe you'll find some mutual connections between the two of you, right? So LinkedIn is another spot that you should go and you should be checking out for some of these people, like, and not just your editors and coaches, but your publishers, your publishing consultants, your book marketers, your I mean the list goes on and on.
And Nonfiction Authors Association too, Allie. We didn't mention that organization, but I know we included in our book. The Nonfiction Authors Association, for the obvious reason, if you're an author of a nonfiction manuscript that's going to turn into a book, you want to be a member of that organization. But also, one of their resources is they have I'm going to call it a database, for lack of a better word, of publishing consultants, publicity consultants, and marketing consultants. And they also have awards. Actually, one of our authors won an award, and you know her, but I'm going to like get off of the soapbox and get back to the conversation. But check out the Nonfiction Authors Association, a ton of resources there, and all kinds of people in the publishing industry who are professionals and they know the industry and they can support you on your author journey.
Yeah. Now, the last thing that I'm just going to speak to is word of mouth referral. And I put it in all caps because I feel like this is the hugest way, to find the right people for you. When you know friends, colleagues, whatever, who have had excellent experiences bringing their book to the world, find out who they worked with, find out who they used. Now, it doesn't mean that they might be the perfect fit for you because you're a totally different person, but it's a great place to start, right? We all want to work with people that don't feel completely brand new to us and that we also know somebody else had a great experience with, right? I mean, how many other things do we go on based on word of mouth referral, right? Like when we're doing home renovation, we need, the bathroom redone. We had car trouble, whatever it is, we're often asking around like, well, who have you had a good experience with, right? It's no different in the book space. So get those people that you already know who've successfully published and ask them who they used. All right. So that really kind of brings us to like, what do you ask when you get these people on the phone, right? And we have a clever way of describing it in the book, and I don't remember now how many P's exactly, but there's price, pocketbook, property, people, and
Portfolio.
Okay.
Oh, and there were 6 of them. There were 6 of them, Allie. Process, people, fine print,
Fine print.
pocketbook, property, and portfolio.
Okay. And there's a reason for all this madness. Number one, we love alliteration, but also there's very specific things that attach to each one of these P words to try to help keep it organized in your mind. And these are not in order of how we would recommend you discuss them on a call, but essentially we would want you to focus on how much is this person going to charge? Okay. That's your price and pocketbook. Okay. What's the budget? All right. How much is it going to cost? How many intervals or payments is it going to require? At what times and dates? Okay. So that has to do with your payment structure. Property is, okay, well, who owns the thing that they've just done? All right. Now, honestly, you should be owning all of it, right? But when it comes to maybe working with a publisher, maybe the publisher owns some part of that for a certain period of time. Bridgett, do you want to speak to that piece?
Yes. So here's the deal. I have learned that there are some publishers, even in the hybrid space, that will own a portion of your intellectual property, that will own a portion of the rights to your book. Now, shameless plug, at Press 49, we do not do that. You maintain 100% ownership of your intellectual property. We file your application with the United States Copyright Office in your name. You are the full claimant, but you are going to want to check that. And especially if you're working with a ghostwriter. Now, the name and the word ghostwriter should imply this person just kind of remains in the shadows and is not mentioned whatsoever. But when you're having those initial conversations, if you decide to work with a ghostwriter, you need to find out, does that ghostwriter plan on laying any claim to that intellectual property that you have paid for them to create? I mean, typically they don't, but ask that question, and ask that question of your publisher that you go with. How much of the rights do you retain to your manuscript and your intellectual property? Some will keep a portion of it. I'm here to tell you, it shocked me when I found out that some publishers will hold on. And not just traditional publishers. That's kind of standard for traditional publishers to maintain some portion, if not all of the rights to a manuscript. But in the hybrid world, there are some hybrid publishers that will hold on to a portion of the rights to your manuscript. Ask that very important question.
Yeah, I had no idea. That's really, really great to be keeping your eye on, which actually kind of connects with this other one way down here, fine print. And the fine print meaning read your contract. When you're signing with anybody, read your contract into the weeds, into the details, make sure there's not anything in there that's hidden from the conversation you already had, hidden from the cost breakdown they already provided. you know, isn't saying that you're going to owe something on some other side or, you know, whatever. So, when in doubt, consult with an attorney. Okay. These are legally a binding contracts. All right. And you want, you know, obviously the service provider wants to be protected, which is why they have a contract, but you also need to be protected as well, as the paying customer.
And be
So
a little leery. Be a little leery if you have someone who says, this is going to expire in 48 hours or something like that. They need to give you time to review it yourself or for you to have an attorney to review the contract. So if you've got a publisher or any kind of service provider, I don't care if it's publishing or somebody coming to remodel your bathroom in your house, you want to follow this advice of, if they're rushing you into signing something, kind of take a step back and you know, I don't want to say be a little leery, but be a little leery.
yeah, and go with your gut. I mean, I think this is also really important. If something doesn't feel right, then something isn't right. Like, even if that's just like they would be fine for somebody else, but if they're not right for you, then they're not right for you, and you move on. There's plenty of other people to tap that are going to be a better fit for you. So listen to those initial kind of reactions, and if they're forcing a 48-hour deadline or something that doesn't give you enough time to process and really consider such a big investment, which a lot of book stuff is, then I would say move on or push back and say, hey, this is just not a realistic amount of time for me to make a decision like this. So when it comes to people, portfolio, and process, so people and process, this really has to do with how do they work? What steps are they going to bring you through? And is there anybody else that's going to touch your project once you hand over the goods? Okay. So whether that's editing or publishing, like, is there anybody else other than the person that you specifically spoke to on the phone that's also involved in this process? What is their role and function? Okay. Um, and, you know, are they under the same contract that you're signing, you know, with this particular service provider? Like, is this other person a part of the business? Um, and then portfolio is really like, can you see examples of this person's work? All right. And believe it or not, while you might think it would be difficult to see an editing, you know, sample, like people can show you what something looked like before, what something looks like marked up, and then something looks like after. Okay. So while it might seem like, oh, well, they could show me samples of like their previously published books, or they could show me samples of their previous cover designs, you can also get samples, writing samples and editing samples when you're looking for ghostwriters and you're looking for editors. So that portfolio piece helps to really acknowledge that they've had success before, that they have happy customers, good testimonials and reviews, and that the visual work of what they've done, right, looks good. The editing looks good. The writing sample looks good. The cover design looks good. Bridgett, anything to add on the portfolio piece?
You hit the nail on the head, if you will. You, especially if you're working with a publisher, you're going to want to ask them, what are some of your favorite projects? Do you mind sending me a copy of a couple of your favorite projects? I can't speak for all publishers, but I know me personally, I'm happy to send you copies of some of my favorite books that we published or some that we recently published, or if you see one where you see it on Amazon and you think to yourself, that looks kind of cool. Let me just reach out and see if they'll send me a desk copy, a complimentary copy of it. I am happy to do that. You want to do that. And if you're working with an editor, like Ali was saying, you want them to show you the before and after. If they're a mechanical editor, you want to see the before and after of them finding grammatical and mechanical errors in a manuscript or in a sample manuscript. The list goes on and on. So if you're thinking about working with someone, they should not be afraid to show you samples from their portfolio or their full portfolio. As a matter of fact, they should be proud to send you links or samples of their work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So where we're going to kind of leave this, folks, is you know, there's a lot of information just in this particular aspect of things, right? Calling in the professionals, knowing who to work with, when to work with them, where to find them, etc. Right? And this is just part 4. We gave you part 1 through 3 earlier in the month as we progressed closer to February here. And basically, what we want you to know is that all the who's, what's, when's, and where's is all inside. Do not write a book until you read this one. Okay. This is going to be, this meaning the book, do not write a book, is going to be a really vital asset to your toolbox, if you will, on the writing and publishing journey. You want this desk reference to be sitting right near you. It's got a beautiful index, so it's easy to find different material that you need. It also has ridiculous amounts of appendices. Like half of the book, I think, is probably just appendices, because we have put everything we possibly can think of into this book to help you succeed. So interview questions for all these people that we just talked about, they're in there. Places to find all these people, it's in there. Who all these people are and what do they do and how do they differentiate themselves, it's in there, along with all the other things that we've referred to in the other 3 parts of this live stream series. So this is a book that you're going to want to notate, post-it note, underline, write in, and you're going to want to refer to it so much that the page is eventually going to rip and your thumb's going to get all like black ink because you're just going to be flipping through that thing with vigor. So, this book is available for you to pre-order today. Should be published in February. All right. It's beautiful. It's hardcover. It's got a great jacket. It's got note pages in it for all those scribbles. I mean, it is literally beautiful, beautiful, bold, brilliant, gorgeous, and so ridiculously informative that like we'll be gushing over this book for the rest of our lives.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Not to mention, it's so bright, you will not be able to miss it. Okay. You will not be able to miss it. So we really want you all to have the best and most successful writing and publishing journey that you possibly can have, especially if you're a first-time author. So don't make it harder on yourself. Grab the resources that are available to you that are good ones. This is like a one-stop shop. It will help you avoid the rabbit hole of Google and internet searching to try to piece together all of the information that you need. Okay, come to one place and have it right there at your fingertips. So grab your copy today over at Press 49. I think you can also now pre-order it over on Amazon. Okay, so it's there too. And if you've got questions, here's the thing that we want to tell you all about. All right. If you are thinking about writing a book in 2024 or 2025, and you're looking to get started and you want a good foundation and you want to work with 2 brilliant badasses such as Bridgett and myself, all right, and tap into the awesome that is Do Not Write a Book Until You Read This One, Bridgett and I are going to be running a 2-part I don't know, workshop, mastermind. We haven't figured out the naming of that just yet, but a 2-part educational thing in March. All right. That's going to be pairing Do Not Write a Book Until You Read This One with your customized roadmap for actually getting the thing done and doing it the right way. All right. Huge pieces. Okay. And a part of the cost of working with us for that 2-part class is going to be the book and the roadmap. And then we're going to walk you through in those 2 90-minute sessions. We're going to walk you through filling out your roadmap in a way that's going to set you up for success. It could be some other things that we might unveil while we're in there. But if this is something that interests you, if this is something that you're ready to do, you want to do it right, and you want to do it with the right guides, then please drop your name into the comments wherever you were watching this video so that we know to add you to the wait list. And we know that you're interested in joining us in March and putting some serious skin into the game. Anything you want to add there, Bridgett, before we wrap up?
Nah, that's it. Would love to support you. We want to. Allie and I are so passionate about putting great content out into the world. We don't work with everyone. There are some people where it's just not a good match. We want to work with you. If you've got an amazing message, you have an amazing story, you have amazing clients, an amazing process, whatever it is, and it needs to go into a book, all the signs are pointing at you that it's time to do a book. Whether it's clients that are asking you for books, whether it's when you speak, people are asking you where they can get your book. If it's just the obvious next step in your business or in your personal professional journey, it's time to do it. So Allie and I would absolutely be honored to work with you to get it done and to get it done right.
Yes, I couldn't have said it better myself. So we're going to be waiting for you to drop your name into the comments so we can add you to our wait list. And we hope that between now and then, you're going to be going and snatching up a copy of Do Not Write a Book Until You Read This One. And of course, folks, if by the time we run this thing in March, you've got your copy already, we will settle up with you at that time. Like, we're not going to force you to have 2 books. maybe you know somebody that you want to gift another copy to. So there's always that. All right, folks, that is a wrap for the Do Not Write a Book Until You Catch This live stream series. We hope that you've gained all that you could possibly want to know, or you're at least intrigued enough to go and get a copy of the book. And we'll be seeing you in all the online spaces. Ciao.